I'm William Shatner. I've done a lot of things in my career, but this takes the cake. This is so cool. You, Joseph, today, it's all about you. You won the internet. Congratulations. It's exciting. It makes me want to celebrate. Makes me want to get up out of this chair. Makes me want to sing. Makes me want to dance. Makes me want to shout. Kick my heels up. Throw my hands up. Toss my head back. No, really, people should be shouting your name in the street.
Come on now. Sing
that song.
Joseph,
Sing it out loud.
Joseph.
I want to celebrate. Put it up in lights.
The internet belongs to you.
No one else deserves to be celebrated like you because you are the best.
Well, surprise, surprise, surprise. This is me, comedian George Wallace, the new Mr. Vegas. I'm here with you tonight. I'm famous. But let me tell you something. Your host tonight, Joseph Jaffe, he's not famous. He's not famous at all. But that's all we can do for you tonight. That's the best we can do. You know, Joseph is like Jon Stewart wannabe. He's like a Howard Stern wannabe. He is not famous, but he's your host, okay? Maybe he'll do good tonight. This is what you paid for. This is what you get. So, ladies and gentlemen, maybe you want to show him some love. Please welcome the not-so-famous Mr. Joseph Jaffe. Make some noise. Make some noise.
Am I being overconfident? Am I becoming complacent about complacency?
I think you are.
Oh, he's not the Messiah, he's just a very naughty boy.
Yeah, I've got big ears.
Brian doesn't want to see anyone else. Piss off!
That's the one. Because you literally complete me, and we complete each other.
You've obviously encountered discrimination in your own life by virtue of being Australian. So
Hey, Manuel Kemp was a real pissant who was very rarely stable.
I don't want to get too gushy, but I might just be saying you complete me, D. P&G now stands for Pritchard and Good.
Branding is not a bad blind date. Look at you! You are insane!
How did I do that?
You're
How
insane!
did I do that?
You're insane!
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Joseph Jaffe is Not Famous. And why would I be famous when I have the very famous, wait. I didn't even ask him this in the green room because just a little bit of fun. Is it Staeven? Is it Steven? Is it Staeven? Is it Stevia? Who knows? But all will be revealed when Staeven Frey comes on my show. And I just remembered there is another famous Staeven Frey, but he is not as famous as Staeven Frey, and he will be my guest on the show today. We are going to talk science, weird science of branding. We're going to talk about a lot more as well, if the tech gremlins are kind to us, because we were gaining and we were popping and we were snapping and we were crackling. We were doing it all. And at the end of the day, it seems like it was just a computer fan that foiled us again. But more on that later. I want to talk to you a little bit about the Collective Cafe every single morning, weekday morning, Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We get together for a little bit of virtual coffee. So if you like having your hair in rollers, it's a nice little, I don't know, I guess they did that in the 1960s. Or if you're taking the kids to school, if you're commuting, walking the dog, or on the treadmill, this is an audio-only, audio-first opportunity for you to hang out with us, to manifest, to AMA, ask me anything, to talk thought leadership, and really just to provide each other with support, with emotional, spiritual, physical, well, not physical, Audioville. Weren't they a band from the 80s? something like that. But come and join us. All you have to do is join the Discord server, discord.gg/Alpha Collective. And we also have a podcast version within 10 to 15 minutes of actually concluding at 9 a.m. I put the episode on the internet, which I won, according to William Shatner. And I actually once, when I worked at Shire Day, I once got an envelope, a letter addressed to me, and it said, Joseph Jaffe, director of the internet. And I'm like, well, thank you. Thank you. Screw you, Al Gore. You didn't create the internet. I did. Well, I directed it, at least. But we put the podcast out there. So for people that might not be able to catch it live or want to enjoy it on their commute, it is yours. Today, we discussed an amazing conversation, actually, about streaks and records and why they're important and when they're important and how to measure them and the journey versus the destination. It was a lot of fun, and you can catch it on Apple Podcast, and when I get to it, Spotify and Amazon and all the other podcast machines. Now, I thought I would share with you today just a little bit of some of my thinking, because I've been trying to think of the evolution of brands, of personal brands, of media brands. And I put together this little slide. I'll put it up like this. In fact, I will now do that to give you a sense of what I'm building and to give you a sense of where I think it's all heading. Now, in many respects, you see me at the top, of course, my AI-generated avatar, which is part of the whole evolution of identity and brands and branding, etc. And I'll skip the second layer for a moment and just talk to you about the other things that might seem a little bit more familiar to you. So first of all, my assets, my distribution points, my contact points, my keynote speaking, my new book, Forever Changed, and my other 5 books that I've written before. Alpha Collective, my premium community designed to help executives and founders and creators connect and win at the business of Web3. And of course, Joseph Jaffe is not famous. These are my touch points. These are my assets. And then below that are a bunch of ways that these assets are then access is given to those assets and how they are distributed further through Discord servers, through a podcast, through the actual Collective Cafe, which is the audio session, and through my LinkedIn newsletter. And then below that are events. Now, one of the things that I said that I would do, in fact, one of the things that I am doing, not dodo, but do, is the fact that I am no longer available to be hired via traditional means. No more consulting, and for the most part, even no more keynote speaking. The only way to access me for free is, and there are many ways, I'm just going to do less Clubhouse rooms and less Twitter spaces. What I am going to do is give myself as much of myself as I can through Discord, through the Collective Cafe, through the Collective Cafe to go, through my show, through this show, and also through events. But the ability to access me is going to come through that layer, that second layer. My Jaffe coin, my creator coin, which you can actually find out about and even buy some if you like through jaffe.cedar.app, through Alpha Collective, where you can buy into the collective through an NFT, but there's also an entry level NFT, which you can get for probably about $3 or $4, no more than that. And you can do that through the OpenSea link. And then through POAPs, which is proof of attendance protocol. And I just saw Staeven in the background, I don't know, kill a mosquito or something like that. He's nodding as well. Through these proof of admission or proof of attendance, call it like a digital ticket stub. And so very soon in 2023, just by you watching the show, you're going to be able to get a POAP, a limited edition POAP that says you were here. You attended this episode with Staeven and myself. No one will be able to emulate that or to duplicate it or to imitate it or to copy it. It will be a genuine proof, a stamp that you will own and only you will own. and you will be able to eventually redeem it or exchange it for what I would call priceless experiences. I've always believed that the two keys to brand evolution are the A's, assets and access, giving access to those assets. And how you define and what you define as an asset, well, that is a discussion. In my fourth book, Zero Paid Media is the New Marketing Model, I was very explicit about the O of Zero standing for owned assets, your people, your products, your packaging, your clothing, your data, your customer service, and maybe even your science. And that's what opens up today's seated soliloquy, which is called Science, Weird Science. Now, look, I have to tell you that I'm a bit of a look, when it comes to vaccines, I'm a big believer in science. But when it comes to marketing, to my art, my craft, I've always gravitated towards the art side, the right brain versus the left brain side. I've always felt that there's too much data, too much analytics, too much left brain thinking, too much slicing and dicing and dissecting, as opposed to the power of creativity, the power of the story. And so I went and decided to look at the definition of science, and this is what came up. The systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation, experimentation, and the testing of theories against the evidence obtained. Now, that to me doesn't sound as scary. That sounds pretty cool. That sounds like a real open environment for testing and learning and failing and risk taking and being able to try new things. I like that a lot. It doesn't feel as left brain as I thought. And observation, well, that doesn't feel ultimately left brain at all as well. The ability to observe, the ability to see the world through a lens of curiosity and without selective perception, without prejudging, without bias, the ability to be an active listener, again, that doesn't sound as scary. Now, the other definition, which I'll just put up for a second, says knowledge of any kind. Well, if that is true, that doesn't sound, first of all, archaic at all. It sounds very modern to me. If knowledge of any kind is science, then give me some science. Give me an extra dollop and helping of science. Give me a little bit of brand science, courtesy of my guest, Staeven Frey. And I'm still going with Staeven because it still might be Staeven. It still might be Staeven or Staeven, but all will be revealed in about 2 minutes. Staeven is the adorkable, I still can't say it properly, adorable dork. He is a dorkable founder and the chief brand scientist at Quantum Branding. He helps brands become authentic and memorable category leaders through the power of brand science, the core of what fuels a successful brand's growth, sales, and marketing. His playful, light-hearted, and articulate insights make it easy to understand the science of branding, the most important aspect of every brand's existence. He's passionate about helping brands become the industry authority they're meant and made to be. I really love that statement. We're going to discuss that. He loves anything orange, cats, plants, pottery, Coke Zero, me too, and white mochas. He hates Mean Girls, not the movie, condiments, and an empty coffee cup. He's never met a stranger, albeit human or animal. Please welcome Mr. Well, what is it? Staeven. I think it's Staeven, right? It's Staeven on mute. You knew it was happening.
My mother calls me Steven, so but my name is Staeven Frey, and a lot of people pronounce Frey, especially after Game of Thrones. Everyone was like, "Ooh, Frey!" And then while what was that show? Futurama was on. Everyone was like, "Ooh, Fry!" So depending on what shows are out there, influences how people say my name. But my name is Staeven Frey, and thanks so much for having me.
So Staeven Frey / Fry, but now let's focus on something else, because I see in your title it says MFA, and I'm thinking that MFA must stand for. Am I right, or is it something else?
Yes, it stands for awesome.
It stands for
No. So I do have my MFA in brand strategy, and so that is something that I put on there because that helps people know that I am first and foremost in academic, and that academics in science and the pursuit of evidence-based metrics are important to me. Actually looking into the best marketing science PhD program right now and trying to figure out whether that's a PhD or that's a DBA, a doctor in business administration and marketing. But there's a lot of different programs out there and trying to find the one that's the right one, but passionate about getting a degree that is really just a personal goal. It's not going to make me more money. I didn't get a bump in pay from myself when I went off and got my master's. But I decided, I gave myself a timeline and said, I want to get a degree in this area, in something that I'm passionate about and that I love and I feel made to do. And that's the case with branding.
All right. So we've established now that MFA stands for a master of awesome. So that's good. And I love hearing that you're an academic, because I am too. You know, I teach at NYU, but that doesn't make me the academic. I always loved the models. I always loved the frameworks. And I realized at some point in my life that I could actually create my own, which is the most incredible gift, to be able to create a matrix or a framework or a different lens or a filter to look at the world, to look at marketing, to look at branding. And we're going to get into that in a moment, because, you know, I've always seen so much research and data and science associated with things like tracking eyeballs and trying to almost, I don't know, dehumanize people as an object, not objectify, but almost dehumanize them as objects, to be able to say we've created the science, the foolproof way of being able to force our product down their throats and sell more stuff to them. I think we can do better, and I have a feeling that that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, there's actually a really great image that shows a pile of Legos, and it says data, and then it shows them sorted by color, and then it shows them arranged, and then it shows a picture of a house, and it says explained with a story, but then it shows actionable, useful, and it shows all the different ways that data, those Legos, can be used as well. So that's a really, really great way for visual storytelling, for us to kind of view information as what is the goal in mind and what is the end purpose. So what does eye tracking have to do with the people that it's connected to? And how can I prioritize? Am I distracting them? So, or am I engaging them? So, you know, a lot of those things like Hotjar is one tool that uses eyeball tracking or mouse tracking. And so you could see where people were going. And the goal was, how do I tell better stories that help people engaged? But hopefully today we will give you, I promise to give you that dollop of science that you requested. So we're going to give you a dollop.
Well, you've just done that, and you've also shown the beautiful juxtaposition between the data, between the science and the art, between storytelling and story selling, if you will, even with something like data. Let me see if my producers and my extensive team has been able to find the right link. And it seems like, yes, this is exactly what you were alluding to, right?
Yes, that's a great example. And there's been a couple different iteration. I like this one the most because it's on Stanford's website. They didn't pay me to say this, but I like at the end it shows the actionable and useful use, because not always is the data that we create and the information that we gather and sort and arrange and present, not always do people use it for how we want to. The goal is that it's always beneficial for all members of society. That's the goal and should be the goal. And so, but what if they want to use it in a different way? And so I like the actionable, useful examples of all the different ways Legos can be used. I actually used to collect the Lego boxes and the instruction booklets, because I loved on the back of the box, you could flip it over and it showed all the different ways you could turn that model into something else. Really loved it.
I actually did when I do teach at NYU, there's a really amazing example. It was a study that was done with a brick. And what they did is they showed this brick to their test subjects. But while they were actually exposing them to the physical brick, there was a video, an introduction, and subliminally, this was kind of like in context subliminal advertising. They either showed an IBM logo or an Apple logo. But what they did is they divided the groups into two groups. Some saw the Apple logo and some saw the IBM logo, and then they asked them to identify as many uses with that brick as possible. And what they found, not surprisingly, is that the ones that were subliminally exposed to the Apple logo came up with much more creative use cases for the brick, like Jenga and a doorstop as opposed to building a house. That was also an interesting way to kind of combine the two.
That's really, really interesting. And that actually connects to our dollop of science. We're going to talk about, depending on, I'm letting you steer the show today, but it's going to connect us to distinctive memory structures. And the way that we think is actually kind of organized in little boxes. When I give talks, I actually talk about this and I segue. And one of the things I do when I speak at conferences or events or workshops, I say, let's go on an adventure together. Let's go someplace everyone loves. Let's go to a place where all our dreams can come true. All our deepest desires can be fulfilled. And I say, let's go to the fridge. And usually there's some chuckles. And I say, okay, let's open our imaginary fridge and look in the fridge for something that's white, that's in the door, that's in a jar, that's a condiment. And then people are like, I know where he's going. And then I say, that's a vegetable. And then they usually are like, what? And then by the end of it, you've either thought horseradish, or if you're one of the very few people that likes Chicago-style hot dogs, you have chopped up onions in a jar. Either way, please keep the lids on those imaginary condiments. But your brain has organized your thoughts into cultural contextual boxes so that it's like the March Madness bracket. You ever see March Madness brackets? They and they get to the winner. Well, the winner is our thought. And that's how we think, is we organize things into little boxes. It's almost like there's lots of different classification systems like animal, vegetable, mineral, for your thinking. When you think in the fridge, please we're going to shut the imaginary fridge door. When you think of those examples, you're thinking food. So your brain has thought of food, color association. And this is a really good example of semiotics. And semiotics is how we create distinctive memories. So from whence the rabbit trail came, when you're talking about, in that study, they showed people different brand marks. Well, those brand marks have different memories, and those memories are sensory. And those sensory memories have different boxes that your mind, I went to. And it's almost like your brain builds a path, and now you have those associations. In your brain, little pathways that you go to faster and faster. So at the end of the day, semiotics is the way that we start to create memories. Well, why are memories important? Memories are how we remember stuff. And so that's why we have to use our sensory, to create sensory memories. And so that's where branding comes in. So I hope that connects some things to your brick story.
So
Actually,
the essence of it is shortcuts and fast tracks to help association, to help create context, and to help compartmentalize.
yeah, and what people don't realize is there's several factors going on, and the reason I like to use science as a framework to explain marketing is you mentioned something really interesting to me, that when you think of marketing, you kind of lean, from what I heard you say, towards an arts and humanities approach. That, oh yes, we're in the middle of art and commerce, and so this is the art of being businessful. Businessful, we'll use that. So, you know, marketing from an arts and humanities standpoint is more theoretical in an unproven sense. But when we look at marketing in a functional, how does it work? What is it meant to do? It becomes very easy, because then it's qualitative, quantitative, different types of research. We can research the trademark electronic search system to see the increase or decrease of mustaches and brand marks over time. We can see what intellectual property people are protecting, and so that we know, oh, we can't choose assets that are similar to or like. And so then even the USPTO has a spectrum of what is trademarkable and what isn't, all the way from super arbitrary and random to literal. That's why you can't trademark the word aspirin on a tablet, but put an apple on a computer. The two don't relate. You're creating brand equity, or wanting to create brand equity, by something that's arbitrary and super distinguished.
I have a few, it's like more than a few follow-up questions. But the one is this idea of expected pathways. Sometimes we have to break them. Sometimes, the human brain operates by saying, when exposed to new stimuli, where have I seen this before? And attempts to find this. It's the square, the square peg for the square hole, right? Or the round peg for the round hole. But the flip side of that is being able to disrupt those pathways, or to create something that is a disconnect in a positive way. How do we train ourselves as marketers, as consumers, as humans, to rewire, to resist, or to think different, to quote Apple?
Sure, that is a great question. So I think we first have to start with a foundational understanding of what we're doing and kind of the world we're operating in. When we are talking about marketing, we want to make sure that we understand what is the goal of marketing and where does it fit. A lot of times when I read books like Traction, great entrepreneur EOS system, and I see people talk about growing their brand. Marketing is kind of tucked in. But when you think of it as a pyramid, pyramids are really a four-sided, depending on what type of pyramid, but typically they have multiple sides. You have to build the whole thing from the ground up. It's not like you just go from ideation to, concept to traction to growth to scale to authority. Well, where's the rest of the pyramid? It's going to fall down. So there's actually metrics of what is a healthy metric for branding and marketing to have. What is healthy metrics for your operations and for your people? And so different things and qualifiers, age and stage wise, we have to build up and think of marketing as this integrated thing. But at the end of the day, we need to know what we're building in the age and stage we're at. But here's the thing, we need that foundational understanding of what marketing is. And at the end of the day, it's really easy. I define marketing, and everyone's like getting out their pencils. They're like, marketing is the act of saying...
There will be a test. There will be a test.
There is, hopefully, and you can win one of these fantastic prizes. But marketing is the act of saying, Do business with me. And the goal of marketing is to help facilitate trade. If we look at that really foundational example, all of a sudden we see Salesforce, we see Twitter, we see social media, all those other things as tools to say, hey, do business with me. Great example, people probably on your show earlier, unless they're like super geeky in my world, probably didn't know who I was. But if you're really big into branding and you follow me, you may be like, oh my gosh, Staeven, you got to talk to him. He's super fun. He's super exciting. And what is the difference? The difference is what we call mental availability. Ma and pa. And this isn't gender binary. It's actually mental availability and physical availability. The whole goal of marketing is to make people think of you. So if the goal is people to think of you, you want to disrupt them. And you're talking about how do we change that thinking? This is the first step. We have to change how we view marketing. Before, when you think of, you ever see old classic ads that like are long form editorial, and it's about the woman in the kitchen or the man at work, or it's a cleaning product? They're very, very biased, usually in the 50s, but they were long form. And it's like basically a long ad. And you would read them, and we thought that the goal of marketing was to educate people. And that's kind of been a pervasive thought that's followed us along. Marketing science says, no, thank you for that idea. And I want to focus on the real one. And the real one is that people have two systems of thought. It's not actually left brain, right brain. It's more system 1 and system 2. It's why you can breathe and drive a car and talk to a friend all at the same time, because system 1 is non-conscious, it's contextualized, it's automatic, it's associative, it's autonomous, it doesn't require working memory. And the other one is system 2. It requires memory. It's slow. And so these two systems, there's a great book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And a lot of people are familiar with it. It's a hefty read. It's not like easy peasy, bathroom material. But the idea is that we are not educating people, because at the end of the day, people have evolutionary minds. At the end of the day, their minds are telling them, is this safe? Is this not safe? And we learn autopilot, and our brains are on autopilot all the time. There's a study, a guy dressed up in a gorilla outfit went to the supermarket, and less than I think 11% of people noticed him. Because when you're at the supermarket, you are on autopilot.
No,
So
because he was in New York, which is actually normal to see a gorilla shopping. But anyway, sorry, carry on.
It's true. It's true. So the first way to shift our understanding of these boxes and how people think is that it's first a functional view of marketing. What is marketing meant to do? And then branding is this gem within side marketing that helps us create those memories. And the goal is to increase mental and physical availability. Ma and pa is what I like to abbreviate them as. And so any marketing activity that we have is meant to help facilitate trade by increasing mental availability. Now, distribution is how you make sure that you have enough of that physical availability. So if I see ads for Chobani yogurt, and they tell me about the brand, they show me the features and benefits, maybe I see some reviews, whatever. I see it enough. If I go to buy it and it's not there, they've lost, because they didn't address mental and physical availability in a sense of metrics that I need to know. And what's interesting is BrandScience shows us a model where mental and availability and those metrics, those KPIs, scale for what age and stage you're at. So by the time you're a super big leader, yeah, you're worrying about SKU optimization and media research. But when you're down here at the bottom, people don't even know anything about you. So you need to get your first 5 customers. So the metrics change. But the interesting thing about System 1 and System 2 is that they're not like those ads. They're not like those ads where we're trying to educate consumers. We actually have to disrupt people, get their attention. They have to be nagged. And that's another acronym. Notice, attract, and get. if somebody doesn't notice the gorilla, they're not going to notice that, oh, bananas are on sale and here's a coupon for them. Literally, that's, I think, what was the point of, the idea is like, get people's attention. So the whole point is to, how do we disrupt people? So then this walks us into, different tactics and different things, consumer behavior, a lot of different studies, and basically variables of, wow, people purchase differently when their age ends in the number 9, or some other things, confirmation bias. And there's all these other different biases. So by having this foundational framework, we understand our whole goal is just make people think of us first, but then we need to go create sensory assets that make people associate with us so that when they are on autopilot, they then choose us. So that's the whole goal. That's the whole goal. So shifting this foundational idea that marketing is so complicated, it's always growing, it's always changing. It's like, what if I told you how plants grow? You'd be like, yeah, dude, I learned that in 2nd grade. It's like, what if I told you about the birds and the bees? Yeah, I learned about that at the back of the bus, but you also learned about it in 7th grade, probably, or a health teacher. But the unfortunate part is nobody's teaching anybody about brand science and marketing science as
let
much.
me ask you a
And
question.
so we're listening to what the equivalent is, the back of the bus. And we're thinking, oh, this is the new thing I need, instead of using the foundational tools that marketing science has laid out for us.
What if I wanted to shift the conversation, not from the goldfish mentality, which is the fact that we as humans now have attention spans less than a goldfish, but to goldfish plants, for example, because it turns out you did not see that segue coming, that you love plants and gardening, do you not?
I do. I was going to send you a picture of, I couldn't find one, but I basically have a moratorium on plants right now. I'm not allowed to buy any more unless there's one dies, because that's how much room is taken up in my bay window in my kitchen. But yes, I love the color orange, and I have several orange cats. I have an orange KitchenAid mixer. I have an orange car. I have several orange things. This is actually one of my favorite things as a kid was this guy. He's just a little Florida orange bird.
Hold on. You love the color orange? Oh, wait, sorry. That's the wrong orange. I think this is the orange that you love. Is that correct? You love the color
That's
orange.
pretty close. That's closer.
I figured.
One thing I appreciate about these episodes is the digital photography team is excellent. The photoshopping is astounding.
What do you mean Photoshop? I don't understand the question.
I meant the digital archives team. Well, their ability to search for media across the interwebs.
All right, so
find true, actual pictures of.
We have found out that you love plants and gardening. We found out that you love the color orange, and you also love cats. Now, before there are no more Photoshops, but yesterday on the show, I actually, you saw an image of my mom. She passed away a couple weeks ago, and I brought back with me our cat Smudge, which she had painted onto a rock. This rock weighs 11.8 pounds, 11.8 pounds. And I lugged Smudge all the way from South Africa back to Westport, Connecticut, to remind me of her every day. And tell us a little bit more about what you've been doing with cats. And here is proof positive.
I need to just pause and say that cat rock is incredible. And one of my favorite books as a child. Hold on. Let me see if I have it.
I'll lift it up again. I'm just hoping that it doesn't drop.
No.
Because if it drops, this is the end of the show.
I see your cat. And I raise you. I raise you the art of painting.
Oh, no way.
The art of painting animals on rocks.
Wow.
One of my favorite books as a child.
That is crazy.
Okay, I say child, like 8 to 10 years old. So this one's my personal favorite on the front. Personal favorite.
Well, I'm hoping Smudge now is your personal favorite. And
Yes.
An interesting point that I was stopped at security both in South Africa and London in transit because they were like, "What is this massive dense object in your backpack?" And I was like, first time I was hoping to get it through. The second time I said, "Oh, it's my rock pet / pet rock," and they're like, "You may pass,
Right.
weirdo."
I think if they identify any sense of crazy, they're like, just not worth it. I get stopped because I carry dog food for my service dog. His name is Onyx. He's a white Siberian Husky. And so he's with me. We have to walk through and they always have to pat him down to make sure he's not hiding contraband. Usually it's like a squeezy bottle of shampoo he likes to hide for his fur or something. I don't know. But they'll always stop me and make me undo my bags to find they can't identify dog food in a sensor. Like it doesn't read, like it just looks like a blob. So anyways, we just carry the dog food with us in a bag and we just plop it on there. And I'm like, hey, that's dog food. I'm like, oh, okay. So I can relate to you on the question.
I'm not gonna lie, a lot is falling into place right now. For example, why you were nicknamed Pumpkin Puss. I can actually say that. You were nicknamed Pumpkin Puss, and here's proof positive about the intersection between orange and cats. And you rescue cats, and you are doing the Lord's work.
Thank you. So I love the difference between dog and cat people. So right there, that's a good view. So top left, we'll go through some names here. Toby Ginger Nuggets. He has a song to the tune of Captain Planet. Instead of it's Toby Babies, he's our hero taking Mousies down to 0. Turbo is our long hair, grouchy man, American short hair, lives outside. His song is to the tune of Fergalicious. In the middle there, we have Clementine, and hers is, if you're from Boston, Sweet Clementine, meow, meow, meow. And then there's Lavender Snow Biscuit. We've got Onyx in the top right. The bottom right is Chamomile. We've got Mr. Peanut Butter, Teddy Pumpkin Pancakes, and then another one of the Regal Miss Clementine. But each one of them has a song and a story. But I was saying I love the difference between dog and cat people because dog people are like, this is my purebred Bichon Frise. He's from Istanbul. And then I'm like, hey, this is Mr. Peanut Butter. He's from a dumpster. Or, hey, this is Toby Ginger Nuggets. He's from a pile of drywall at a job site.
I've never met a Mr. What's it? Peanut biscuits, buttermilk cookie, which is as a dog. So, so Staeven, we'll stay on the ridiculous for just a little bit before we get back to the sublime. But there will be a segue. And you didn't see this one coming, so you may not see the other one coming. But it's interesting to me because, first of all, going back to the pyramids for a second, I love the idea of the 3 dimensions, right? The 3 sides of a pyramid, and yet they're 4. And the base is part of it too. And I love the 4D way of looking at a pyramid. Now, the ridiculous part of it is I've seen a lot of articles recently saying there is no possible way that the pyramids could have been built by human beings because of the precision and because of the number of, stones and how it had to be perfect in order for that final stone or stones to be aligned. What say you about that? Are we ready to debunk some of these theories with a bit of science?
So I'll leave that one to the archaeologists and the sociologists, and actually probably the physicists. The most plausible understanding that I know about pyramids is that they employed a sloping and encircling embankment of brick and earth and sand. And there's actually several methods that you can put water under the bricks and push them and they slide. And so by the means of sledges and rollers and levers, most likely, there's an article in 2019 that came out on Discovery that said, hey, we may know how it was built. And so I'll direct people to that article.
I would say
but I know that when it comes to branding, I like to learn.
I mean, listen, we've debunked aliens with pyramids. We've spoken about painting cats onto rocks, and so, as I said, there is a segue back from space and time to branding. This is the quote that I found for you. It is the tension between creativity and skepticism that has produced the stunning and unexpected findings of science, and that was from Carl Sagan. To me, this was a beautiful, marriage again between art and science. The creativity, the curiosity, the human skepticism, the natural skepticism, and the ability to still be surprised and delighted by what science can reveal, the insights that can bubble up into the surface.
So I love that quote for several reasons. One, the first, when we look at that quote, you have to look at the context of who it's coming from. There's a difference between. I love when people put quotes and it's like, said Abraham Lincoln on the internet, and they put a date on it. It's like, when we look who it's attributed to, whether that's true or not. But when we look at who it's attributed to and we understand the context of where it comes from, to see science from a lens of, and this is where I come from. I'll do a little secret. I love this sweater because it's orange, but it also evokes this concept of play and curiosity. And so, do I usually wear this sweater all the time? No, but I chose it because I'm like, man, if there's one thing people walk away with, is that it's this 4-year-old Staeven playing, I would say playing with Legos, but it marks like the 35th anniversary of me not getting that one space monorail station, Lego monorail train. So I played with all the other ones other than that. But it's like, the concept of curiosity and play and wonder drive our inquisitiveness. And people who are certain are people who I'm less likely to listen to. And sometimes I get frustrated with the world I work in, is because everyone's so certain, but there's no foundational evidence or metrics or something backing it up. And so we see all these newfangled methods and systems, and one of them's based on is it just a different color, or another one's based on the story arc of the hero path. There's all these different tools, and they're not bad. They may provide incredible results, but I am more likely to lean towards someone who offers an inquisitive, curious look and says, how does this work? Come along with me. Let's find out. And then says, here's what we know thus far. Being in the academic, circle, I'm not like in one. It's not like I have a whole bunch of circle of other scientists I hang out with. It's just me and my cats. But in the world of academics, there's people publishing, and all of them are referencing one another. They're saying, based on what they found, I'm finding more out. And then they may take that data and go in a new direction. And so that Carl Sagan quote is really, I think, valuable, because creativity is the lens that you look at things. And then inquisitive nature is the curiosity and wonder that says, how do I find out more about this? And then if I'm wrong, I say, thank you. I did not know that. I learned. So at Quantum, I tell people that I work with and talk to, you're either green and growing or you're red and rotten. And that connects with that quote, because you've got to be curious and inquisitive. And do you want things to be better for your brand? And some of that starts with thinking. It starts with the mindset that you think from. A lot of people have challenges with Carl Sagan. And honestly, it's just because they think so differently. There's no room. I think of a great example. This is unscience related, but if you were a racist and you loved baseball, when Jackie Robinson came out on the field of your home team, you had either one choice. You could either walk away from baseball, or you could be open to discovering a new possibility. And you know, Jackie Robinson is one of the pinnacles of baseball's history and an icon of change for our country. So I can't not remove thinking from the world of science and mindset. And so a lot of that has to do with belief. What do you believe is true? Are you willing to discover things that are different, that are untrue? Would you like to find out? Would you like to find out that the way you've been doing things are less successful? Would you be interested in finding a way that is more successful? What if I could get you to where you want to be faster? And so I find that working in the world of branding, I'm helping folks do what they feel made to do. And you said that you connected with that earlier, and I'd love to poke on that if you want.
Well,
I'm
going to let you poke, but first of all, I'm gonna unleash the air horn, because I mean that was a little bit of a little mini masterclass.
Thank you.
Unpacking a little bit the fantastic example with racism and Jackie Robinson. What a great what did you say? Green and growing, or red and rotten?
Red and rotten.
Yeah, it's a brilliant analogy. But I just want to say this Carl Sagan would love your build on that quote, because the word certainty, skepticism in his quote is a positive skepticism. We should, if we are skeptics, if we're skeptical because we're curious, because we want to know more, because we're open to actually being proven wrong, that is the good kind of skepticism that promotes growth. And so I think maybe Carl, if you're watching from up in space, perhaps you might want to update that quote to add the word certain into it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's always neat hearing how other people experience the world around us, and I find that perspective is typically the only thing that changes. It's I can see the same data and I can interpret it very differently. I did a workshop, and the guy made you tell your story, like what you believe to be the formative events of your life story, and he says, "Okay, now tell it like you're the biggest victim." And everybody shuddered, and then he said, "Okay, now do it like you're Pollyanna." And then he said, "Okay, now do it like you're a gorilla." And you're like, what the heck is the point of this exercise? And the point of the exercise was the interpretation is what changes. And so that's a really, really great principle to remember when we're talking about brands, when we're talking about experiences. Yes, archetype and, M&Ms and Ben and Jerry's and MailChimp, they may be a good example of the Joker archetype. NPR and Google, they're the sage archetype. And so when we're building experiences, what's the end experience in mind that we want to create? And so, you were sharing about your assets earlier. Assets are visual and verbal assets are how we make these memories. And the more famous and distinct those assets are, the more word, shape, color, story, illustration, the more famous and distinct they are, the more people will think of you on autopilot. But it's not just about prompting people to think of you. It's prompting people to think of you with that end in mind, with that experience that you want them to have. Even if it is on autopilot, even if it is them just literally walking by and Hormel, added a little green thing in their name, I think in the late 70s, little leaf. And people thought, oh, that means it's fresh. So then people started buying more Hormel because they thought it was fresh because there's a little green leaf in it. So sometimes those things on autopilot can create significant experiences. And so branding's job is to fuel
with a
everything.
With like a little small tweak as well, subtle and yet quite profound, how small things can make big impact. I mean, listen, I'm loving geeking out with you about the real way marketing works. And really what it alludes to is your practice, which is this practice of brand science and how it changes everything. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about, in the time we have left, the brand science, the
Sure.
art and the science of brand science, if you will.
Sure. Sure. So brand science is the combination of everything that we need to know to create what you want in mind. So if you were put on this earth and you feel like you have something that you're meant to do, brand science is the way that we say, okay, where do you want to take this? Where do you want to build your business? How do you want to build your brand? And so we know the number one way to make mental availability increase is by increasing those assets. So one of the first things on the journey is identifying like, okay, what are some of the principles we need to know? Every category has category rules. So we dive in and look at category rules. Yellow doesn't mean happy. It means stained teeth in the dental industry. You know, if you're in the cookie aisle, there's norms that you need to understand. So category rules is one of the first kind of stops on our trip with brand science to understand, okay, what are the customer cues? If we can mix our metaphors again, you know, cookies and baseball, what are the cues that people want? Crispy, crunchy, soft, chunky, chocolate chip, you know, the cues, but then there's also industry norms. So there's what the user is looking for, what the industry does. Oh, cheap ones are in trays, fancy ones are in parchment cups and in bags. But then there's the intellectual property that we have to navigate. So category rules and researching those is just a huge stop. But brand science helps us make sense of all that and say, what's the best play to hit the ball? You know, Super Bowl's coming up. If you knew that you had to make a Super Bowl play that would win you the Super Bowl, wouldn't you want to make it? But more important than that, you can't just win the Super Bowl in one play. You have to do a whole season. And that's where this holistic approach of saying, how do we grow our business? Okay, we're going to learn category rules. We're going to make some decisions. You know, then when we discover our brand assets, that's another filter of brand science. Most folks have only 3 to 5 brand assets: their color, their brand mark, maybe a tagline, maybe their mascot or the person that's the head of. Well, Coca-Cola has 150 and counting, almost 175. They have everything from pack, shape, color product lines to always Coca-Cola, you know, sound, music, open happiness, the shape of the package. These are all sensory assets. And even if Michelangelo designed your brand mark, I don't say logo, I say brand mark. If Michelangelo designed your brand mark, that's only one. This is a funny story I'd like to say of a friend who was a marriage counselor. She asked couples, she said, okay, if you take out the trash, how many points is that? He's like, 5. If you buy your wife a castle, how many points is that? He's like, I don't know, 10,000. And he asked the wife, how many points are those? And she's like, 1 point. We think things have a bigger impact than
0 in my household, by the way.
So
I've bought her 3 castles and taken out the trash 10,000 times. I get no points for castles, damn it.
No points, no castles. So it's like that with brand assets.
Bricks and everything.
And underfloor heating, by the way. I found that's a big solution to that.
All right, I'm taking notes. And also, Staeven, the concept of, you know, this, you know, sight, taste, smell, touch, and hearing, right? And the audio aspect, sonic branding. There really is a whole combination. And from 5, to your point, comes 5,000 or 50,000 or customization.
I break them down into 7. I say word, you know, so there's everything from the actual word, what the word looks like, tagline, the name of your products. So there's word, there's shape. That can include shapes in your brand mark. That include icons on your website that you use over and over. There could be shapes of your package, like the trademark bottle shape. Febreze has kind of a trademark shape. Dawn has a new spray bottle soap. They kind of have a trademark shape.
I like that
package trade
shape and word in addition to sight.
Word, shape, color. Story is a really big category. You've got archetype in there, so kind of that's your content strategy. You've got, you know, illustrations. Great example, I did a job for a seltzer company. You can't own a picture of an orange or a lemon, but you can own a specific like style of an illustration of an orange or a lemon. So great example, Truly. You look at a Truly, it just has a generic picture. And I'm like, oh man, they missed out. If they would have made that like a unique illustration that was like watercolor or Art Deco or whatever style, but just by, you can't own that shape. So when people see that, they're not going to be like, oh yeah, truly. So everything from illustration to photography to archetype and story elements. The other one's character. Character can be everything from celebrities. It can be spokespersons. I'm Tom Bodett, and I'll leave the light on for you. And all of a sudden, anybody who was around that knew that commercial could hear that song. They could see the Motel 6 logo. They could see the shape of the, Motel 6. They could see the colors, and they could hear the song in the back. They knew that they would leave the light on for you. And all of a sudden, you had a whole bunch of sensory assets that helped remind you.
So I've got
typically
shape,
while you were driving to choose that hotel.
So I've got shape, word, color, story, character. What are the remaining two?
So those are we've got sound.
And what else?
And sound can be an example of it could be an example of non-vocal sounds, like sound assets can be the name your app makes when it updates. So the little noise that WhatsApp makes, or the little mail sound. So sound assets can be vocal styles. I'm Tom Bodett. That's my best Tom Bodett example. Maybe some listeners that remember who that is. So there's sound, and the other one is music. Music can be everything from a jingle to a popular song. The first time I ever heard Fly Like an Eagle into the Future was on a USPS. I did not grow up with classic rock. So I heard that. I assumed, oh, that's a jingle for the post office. They have an eagle. I didn't realize that was a famous song. So here's where this all makes sense now. If I said to you, Joseph, you're not you when you're hungry. You went tagline.
Snickers.
You're not you when you're hungry. Snickers, hungry, brown, package, shape. You could see the shape. You could see the colors. Maybe a commercial with Danny DeVito or Roseanne or a celebrity or somebody not being themselves. And then they eat the Snickers and then they're themselves. And then there's the concept of hangry that's playing on. So if I'm going and making a candy bar company, and I want to go after a concept, would I go after the concept of hungry? Probably not, because they have so much brand equity and association. It literally is like, this is one of my favorite examples. It's like the movie Inception meets Total Recall. They plant the memory in it, and then they recall it. So you say hungry, you're like, hungry, why wait? Have a Snickers. And your mind sends off these axons and dendrites and synapses. And so then when you are at the line in the grocery store or the gas station, like, oh man, I'm hungry. Oh, Snickers. Okay.
Can I tell you
Autopilot, System 1. System 1 was prompted because it's built these, it's like a spider web. It's like a spider web. The more associations means the more memories, and the more memories means they're going to think of you first, or you're going to think of them first.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is not weird science. This is brand science. And so just for the record, I have shape, word, color, story, character, sound. Am I missing one?
Yeah. Color. Did we talk about color?
Yeah.
Word, story, music, shape, sound, and character.
All right, now.
Oh, yeah. We started on that. I started on that. I didn't finish the thought. But yeah, that could be anything from a jingle to a popular song to background music. A great example is the Home Depot. It's like this electric guitar. It's like it's like for doers that like getting more done. And you're like, oh, if I hear that, I'm gonna think Home Depot.
Staeven Frey /
And that's just
Frey.
one more.
I am waiting to segue into the final climax of today. But first of all, I am going to take on Snickers, and I'm not going to take them on with respect to hungry or hangry. I'm going to take them on with hangry. So this is the downfall of Snickers, and we plotted it here. But look, if you're watching and if you're hungry, if you haven't geeked out enough and you want to geek out a little bit more, here's something interesting right now, which is you are currently accepting applicants in your Brandpreneur program, a revolutionary 10-week intensive well, why don't you tell us a little bit more about it as an amazing, I think, call to action, in addition to finding out more about what you're doing at quantumbranding.agency. Tell us a little bit about this program.
Oh, thank you. So I believe that it's hard. I don't want to say that the marketing world is broken. There's a lot of great things that have come out. But when I look at one of the methods we use to help people get traction, some of those methods are broken. And the traditional process that people follow is that you come in, they ask you some questions, and then they come back, an agency typically, because if you want to grow, you know that most agencies or marketing companies are going to help you grow. They're going to do kind of like an feedback. They're going to ask you, what are about you, your business, your brand. And then ultimately, they're going to tell you their ideal budget of what you should be spending with them. And it's basically something that's based on their expertise, something that's based on trend or the latest training they've received. And ultimately, it's the same thing, just repackaged over and over again, even with the noblest of intentions. So what Brandpreneur is doing instead is we're taking your business, your brand, your vision, and what do you want to do on this planet? And filtering it through BrandScience and saying, what is the model? What are the tools? What are the KPIs? And we talked about a lot of them today about BrandScience. The majority of folks have access who are Fortune 500 companies, have access to BrandScience and marketing scientists. And marketing science has been around since the 1960s, but the majority of people don't really know about it. And so these big Fortune 500 brands have marketing scientists that they pay to play access to. And it costs them millions of dollars. And the number one secret that most people don't know is Ma and Pa, distinctive brand assets. And the more you have, the more top of minus you have. And that's the number one way to grow. So we walk you through those evidence-based things in this process so that you come out and you have a plan that you can then take back to your team, that can help you make marketing easier, make everyone's jobs easier, for customers to buy, for people to sell, for your brand to grow, to have branded experience that people remember, that are disruptive, that helps people notice you, be attracted to what you are, and get. And ultimately, we want you to have not fanatical customers. Most people aren't fanatical. That's another brand science myth, that people think that we need a relationship with brands. People don't have a relationship with brands. There's maybe that one guy who changes, or girl that changes their name. That one person that changes their name to be like, Audi or BMW on their driver's license. Like that's like, and they say they have a relationship, or Gucci. But at the end of the day, we want to teach you foundations of how do brands grow based on science. We then want you to, we do an in-person workshop where we gear towards creating your brand plan. And then now that you know the foundations, we're building your plan. We then go through growth strategies so we can understand low risk strategies to create planning, accountability, and we're going to discuss things like consumer biases and other factors that you need to know about that you may not know about, but BrandScience helps us know, so you can navigate the fastest, least resistant plan to success using science. And this is just a really good example. Imagine a river. My friend Aaron uses this. Imagine a river, and it's a big, beautiful river. But then downstream, you look, there are some boulders and some rapids, and the boulders and rapids are pretty, but it's keeping the river from doing progress. There's nothing wrong with the river. But what if that water could get where it needs to be faster? And so this 10-week course is a great way for folks this 10-week program, I would say, is community calls online and in-person workshop, and then again, community calls and coaching and working with. It's an intensive. And this is the way for you to get those boulders out of your business's way so you can get where you want to be and create a brand that people think of first. And that's really what it comes down to it with BrandScience, is that people think of you first.
Staeven Frey, you can break down those boulders. Just leave my pet rock alone. And I do have it on good authority that you've just got one new sign up, which is none other than Chuck Norris.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And we will be back soon. Thank you for this masterclass. I am re-energized because I found my orange cat-loving twin when it comes to the academic science meets art of branding.
And I found my friend who also loves rocks painted.
You better
Cats
believe
painted
it.
on rocks.
You better believe it.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.